Welcome to What's Your Story? Every week I bring you a guest who's authentic and genuine. Today's no different. Today you're going to hear some practical insights and information you could put to use today and get results. I mean that literally. Today you'll be able to put them to use and make a change in your life, both professionally and personally. Today we're dealing with one of life's little mysteries. It's called mindfulness. There are strange bedfellows out there. Hollywood and Harvard are talking about this. Papers are being written. TV shows are being put together. It's all a buzz. We're fortunate today to have an expert in this particular field, someone that really understands it, and for the last 2 decades has been training people in this technique to lower stress, to increase productivity, so companies and individuals can benefit. Today, my guest is Harriet Stein, CEO of Big Toe in the Water, LLC. Strange name, but don't worry, you're going to learn something today that you're really going to appreciate. Harriet,
thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's get right to the point. What the heck do you do?
Yeah, what I do is I go into companies and I teach people this practice, mindfulness, that has been around for thousands of years, mainly being taught in the eastern part of the world. Now the western part of the world realizes how to easily and quickly that they can increase their productivity and decrease their stress.
There are big problems in business today from what I read. Okay, so why did you choose this particular line of work? I mean, where did you come from? You just didn't do this overnight.
Right. So this has been a passion of mine my whole life. Even when I chose a major in college, it was psychobiology, how the mind and the body work together. And then my mother, who was 58 at the time, didn't drink, didn't smoke, was at her ideal weight, and got diagnosed with a type of cancer that was impacted by the immune system, and work stress was a very big contributor. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. I could not save her life, but I could then go into the workplaces and teach people how to decrease their stress and how to increase their health and productivity.
So where were you working at the time? What specifically did you do? How did this all happen that you suddenly were in front of groups helping them become more mindful?
Well, I was actually working at Johnson & Johnson as one of their global trainers in pharma, and I asked my manager, would they mind if I ran a little 30-minute class at lunchtime? And they were like, sure. So I did the 30-minute class.
How many people were in the class?
2 people showed up the first week.
Wow.
2. And then the next week, there weren't enough chairs in the conference room. So because of that, it built and built and just kept growing and growing and growing. I ended up having a class that went for 9 years. And yes, fortunately, one of my colleagues was a global senior director. And she said, what is this thing you're doing? What is this mindfulness? And it was very interesting because I did not know that she did not like to fly. And what happened was, she said, well, tell me about this program you learned how to teach. And I said, well, it's 8 weeks long and it's 2.5 hours a week. And she said, teach it to me now. Because in the business world, and Johnson & Johnson or any company that's listening to me right now, it's the same thing. It is very busy. So she said, teach it to me now. And I did. And what happened was, in those few minutes that I taught her this practice, she then went back and she went on vacation the next day, and she texted me from the tarmac at LAX. And she said, I had no problem flying for the first time, and my family thought I was on drugs. And what was interesting was, because she was such an insightful leader herself, she saw the wisdom of this practice, and she said to me, you know what, I think this will be valuable for my team, for my employees. Could you come in and do an hour program? And that was the very first time that I taught within the workplace, because I had been teaching to the public. And from that 1 hour, it ended up, I taught over 70 different programs at Johnson & Johnson while I was there, over 5,000 of my colleagues. And that's when I realized a couple years ago that it was time now to do this full time for myself.
Just for yourself? Or
No, just to be able to do this full time, to go out there and now help with companies full time to make this the practice. Since when I was at J&J, I was always doing this on the side.
So you mentioned that you went from 2 people in a class to a sellout, right? So what's been the receptivity now that you're out on your own from the organizations that with whom you've worked?
So companies love bringing me in because this is not something like if you want to get in shape for the summer where you have to go to the gym and spend hours and spend time every week. If you come in and I spend an hour with your team, I can very quickly and easily teach them a practice that they will, once again, it's a choice, it's up to them. If they pay attention, their lives will immediately be impacted.
So give me an idea of what you might do with a group.
Yeah, so here's a perfect example. Right now, I would say to you, notice what it feels like to be sitting. Notice the weight of your body sitting on the chair, evenly distributed. If you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, but you don't even need to close your eyes. Just bringing your attention to what it feels like to be sitting.
So what changes will I experience if I do that?
Right. So what happens is we spend the majority of our time in our head. And when you start noticing that, you realize that you're either thinking about something in the past that you can't change, right? Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
That's it?
Or you're worrying about something in the future that might never happen.
Fear.
Exactly.
All right.
That causes churn. That causes stress. When you come into this moment, right now, noticing what it feels like right now in your body, you realize that there isn't that stress because you're not making up any stories.
You mean stories about what?
All those stories about, oh, what if that happens, or why did I send that email, or how do I plan for this? So when you don't have that going back and forth between the past and the future, you realize right now in the present, you have space. You have space to just be able to pay attention, to relax, to focus.
In my research on this for our show, they mentioned how things have really amped up in the last decade compared to where they might have been before, that employees are really suffering in the workplace.
It's unbelievable. So right now, millennials within less than a year are going to make up 50% of the workforce in the United States. They are now seen as the most stressed generation in the history of our country. So they're saying that it costs between $450 and $550 billion.
What was that?
To cut $450 to $550 billion.
With a B.
Right, with a B. That's what it's costing companies for employees who are even disengaged. Mindfulness promotes engagement. And that's what you want to do. Everybody says, a lot of HR people that I speak with, directors, vice presidents, they're very concerned about employee recruitment and retention, right? This is a way that you can show value to your employees because you're supporting them. You realize that they're under a lot of stress, whether they're telling you or not. Do not let their smiles fool you. You know, they're dealing with a lot. I mean, if the financial stress, their family stress, it is a very complex world in which they are living.
So I'm putting myself in the shoes of a millennial. I want to work someplace. And part of my evaluation, from what I understand, is not always about the money. It's about an environment in which I can go and grow and feel that I'm part of something and they're not taking care of me, but they're doing things that really benefit me. So this would fit right in there.
100%. And actually the Boston College Center for Work and Family did that research. Specifically, they did a millennial study several years ago, and they found that salary was not the number one thing that millennials, that's not what they're choosing when they choose a workplace. It really is about the flexibility. They want to know that their employer is listening to them, that they're supporting them. So this very much goes in alignment with that.
Have you ever heard anything negative? Did anybody push back on this? Who wouldn't want to do this based on what you're saying?
Well, you know what? In the old days, it used to be considered woo-woo, right? People used to, that's what people would say, until they found out that this was not just being taught at, places like, Home Depot or Target or Google, or it was now being taught in Congress by one of the congressmen has been teaching mindfulness for quite a while there. People don't know about it, but it's a place that you'd really want to bring mindfulness to. The military, for over a decade now, has been teaching mindfulness to people. It used to be for people after they were deployed. Now they're doing it as in support of people in the military before even they're deployed. So now this is even a common practice in the military.
What does it cost an organization to do something like this?
It's literally, for them to bring me into a company like this, obviously it's not that expensive, because I'm not going to be going into a company and be there for weeks or months at a time. My programs are right within the budget of every company I've ever worked with.
So I'm going to use an adage that can apply in a lot of different ways, but in a way you're teaching the individual within that company how to take care of themselves, how to fish, as opposed to delivering dinner. They're learning how to do this on a day-to-day basis.
Right, very much so. One of the people in one of my classes when I was at Johnson & Johnson said that she was sitting next to a colleague and they were both working. She was in my mindfulness class and the other person wasn't. And they both got an email at the same time from their vice president making a request. And all of a sudden, she noticed that her colleague was very upset and very angry, and how can he expect us to do this, and there's not a lot of time. Excuse me, whereas she said, oh, you know what, okay, all right, he wants us to do this. I'm just going to pause and notice what it feels like in my body, notice my thoughts, right? Notice my mood, right? And then she did it. She was able to accomplish exactly what he had wanted to do.
How long did it take that person to learn that technique?
Oh, it's fast. It's so quick. Literally, I've done programs for an hour, for over a decade now, and people are constantly telling me the impact that it has made. Once again, it's a practice. The more that people practice, the better it's going to be. For a program I did several times last year for a big company in Philadelphia, I said, could I do a half-a-day workshop? And they said no. And I said, could I do 1 hour a week with the same 30 employees for 4 weeks? And they said, of course. And they got extremely excellent feedback from that.
From the employees?
Right.
Okay. So
exactly.
The employees appreciated it. It was a low-cost benefit for the employees that helped the company.
Oh, very much so.
To me, this is a no-brainer.
I know.
We need to take a break, because a no-brainer is we need our sponsors to speak to our audience. So if you'll please come back in a few minutes with Harriet, there's more we want to explore here about mindfulness. Thank you. Be back soon.
There you go, Richard. Oh, is that too hard for you?
No. Is it too hard for you?
Woo, we're playing catch now. Oh, shit.
Why should you choose Rowan College at Gloucester County? Low cost, the #1 nursing program in all of New Jersey. More than 70 programs of study, including selective admissions. With record enrollment. A premier partnership with Rowan University. Transfer options with numerous universities. 4-year degree options on our campus. Rowan College at Gloucester County. Now you're thinking.
Welcome back. My guest today is Harriet Stein. She's an expert in the practice of mindfulness within corporations to help employees lower their stress and increase their productivity, and companies benefit because it helps them retain very, very key employees. So, when we left off, you were explaining some things to me, but you said that I had forgotten something.
Yes,
What was that?
I didn't want to interrupt you because one of the things is, a lot of people make light of this. And it really, the little things, they truly matter. They are not so little. If you're driving down the street and you just hear a notification on your phone without even ringing, maybe just a notification, if you take your eyes off the road for even a moment, that can be the difference between not only the life and death of you, but for people around you that are driving.
That's what I heard, yeah.
So it is these little things that are critically important. I wrote a blog a few months ago, and I purposely sent it out on a Sunday night to say that if you are looking at your phone, okay, Google, Verizon, whoever, they're not going to notify you of the look of disappointment on your child's face, your partner's face, if you're doing this. I was teaching a program last year in New York City, and a woman told me that she was in the stands like this on her phone, and her son was playing soccer, and she would wave to him, and then she would look back at her phone, and he was 13. He came off the soccer field, ran into the stands, and took the phone out of her hands and said, "You are here for me, not the phone." And so I thought that was incredibly important because a lot of times, you hear adults are saying that their kids are on the phone too much, but I would like to ask people, are the adults on the phone a little bit too much? It's not just the children and the teenagers that are addicted to their phones.
And I think addicted is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we practice mindfulness, it'll make us more aware that we are one and the same with our phones.
Right, exactly.
time.
And mindfulness is a practice of compassion. I always tell people, mindfulness, they're like, well, what is it? What exactly is it? I'm like, it's paying attention moment by moment on purpose, right? With non-judgment. So this is a practice of compassion. So even as we're talking right now, if people are noticing, oh, well, I'm the type of person, I hear this all the time. People say, I can't shut down my mind. I'm not the type of person. And I'm like, no. This isn't about shutting down your mind. I've been a nurse now for over 30 years. Shutting down your mind, shutting down your brain, that you're no longer alive. Mindfulness is about paying attention to our thoughts. We're not shutting down anything. I want people to notice where their thoughts are.
So I would think the opposite. It's not shutting it down, it's intensifying our attention in that moment so we know exactly what we're doing.
That is extra credit.
Oh.
The fact that you just got that is extra credit. Because when we do a formal practice, and when I teach the informal practice, which is what we're doing right now, paying attention on purpose to the present moment, and the formal practice, which is sitting, eating, and walking. And what is so fascinating is what you just said, because a lot of people say, well, I'll fall asleep. And it's the opposite. When you are practicing mindfulness, some people joke you are falling awake because you are paying so much closer attention.
Say that term again, falling away?
You're falling awake.
I'm going to start to use that. That's
Right.
interesting.
And wouldn't every company want their employees to be awake and alert and present?
Well, that brings me to my next question is, if I'm an employer, I usually make decisions based on the economic benefits it can bring to me.
Right.
If I'm going to invest $1, what am I going to get back? So what is the value have you seen or the research had about this?
Right. So the return on investment is critical. So the biggest thing that I always say to companies, and for like a CEO, I would say, are you concerned about the cost of rising healthcare in your company for your employees?
Of course I am.
Right. So then why would you not want to do something that's going to decrease their healthcare costs?
Well, it's non-traditional.
Right.
What you're doing is non-traditional.
Because I've been doing it in companies for over a decade now, it has honestly become traditional to me.
Yeah, but as an executive, I'm hearing it for the first time. So give me some numbers as to
Right.
the benefit.
Right. So there's been over 3 decades of research, and over 2,500 scientific papers have been written about the impact of this practice and how it helps your health. So the World Health Organization has said that stress, it is now the #1 killer in the world. It is an epidemic. So heart disease, the #1 killer, right, of people, our hearts, right? This is stress. The impact of stress is huge. So, you know, why not do something to support your employees to help them be able to decrease their stress, be able to increase their mental clarity, help them manage the challenges they're dealing with. The world in which we live in, the challenges are never going to go away. The distractions are never going to go away. This is a way to help manage all that you're dealing with right now.
And we are self-management, right?
Exactly, exactly. I teach people how to pause. I don't have any tattoos. And I tell people because I would get bored easily. I would get one and then want it removed. If I had a tattoo, it would be of a pause button, because I teach people to pause, even if it's thousands of times a day. Because when you pause, you can then say, where's my head at, right? Am I worrying about something from the past, or am I in a future that has yet to even happen? So to keep bringing themselves back again and again to this moment.
You know, I played around with Google the other day, and I put in the terms mindfulness training. You may already know the answer to this. You know how many hits I got?
I'm afraid to ask.
1.7. And the reason I was doing this...
1.7 million?
Million.
You're right.
So the reason I'm saying this to you is there are a lot of people out there claiming to be mindful coaches and doing all this kind of thing. And so what, in your mind, what would you say to the people how you're different? What makes you stand out?
I take that question so seriously, you have no idea. Because I spent years learning how to teach this practice. You know, I did all my advanced teacher training at Jefferson University in Philadelphia. You know, it is incredibly important to know how to teach. You know, I was a global trainer at J&J for 12 years. You know, you need to know that if you're going to bring people to silence, this is the one thing that the research shows that people don't want to do. One person, actually, they did a scientific study where they chose between silence or giving themselves a mild electric shock. And one person shocked himself 190 times.
Oh my goodness.
So even though the Harvard Business Review says that solitude is a competitive advantage in business, I know that when I work into a company, you know, a lot of those people there are not going to want to be in silence. Once they experience it, everything changes.
Harriet, we've come to the end of the show. And you provided some very valuable information to the audience. So I'm giving you an opportunity to look into the camera and to share whatever information you want with people, like how to get in touch with you or any other thing that you think would be helpful to. So time's yours.
Okay. Well, if you have been paying attention right now, I would like to invite you to come and contact me. Let me know if anything I have said has resonated with you. If you're living a very stressed out life and you and your colleagues, or if you have employees that are stressed out, you want to increase their productivity, increase their mental clarity, you can easily contact me on my website, Big Toe in the Water, and I would invite you to do so because I would really like to know what you even thought about what I'm saying today.
Are your social media connections on the website?
Yes, right there on my website.
Okay, so we'll do that. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming on. This is a centuries-old skill or talent that is now very active in the 21st century. I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you so much, Charlie, for
Thank
allowing
you.
me to be here and share my passion.
Thank you. You deserve it.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for tuning in. Next week, I'll have another guest who's authentic and genuine, and we'll have insights and practical information that you can put to use immediately in your professional and personal life. So again, thank you for tuning in, and till next time, be well. Thank you.